Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Recon here, and I have a new tier list for you guys. We're going to cover it in this video today. And just a reminder, as always, ladies and gentlemen, this list is endgame PvP only. LB5s and greater when you have 6 or more. That is all this is. It's a basis to tell you when you get to that point what it's like. Now, I understand that some new updates to the girls' abilities have taken place yesterday, just as we were about to release this. So I did some testing on one of the girls, it's aka Jonah. When I get to Jonah on the list when we're covering it, I will cover that there. But the rest of it didn't really do much to the girls, so yeah, we're just gonna keep it as is, and I'll cover each line as we go. Now, just remember that the girls on the list here you see, the only one we're gonna focus on as more than one girl on a team at a time is going to be the tier Vivian up top. The rest of them will be just talking about a single girl on the team. Just so you know that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. With that being said, let's get into the video. We'll start off at tier Vivian and work our way down. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. The first tier, let me remind you, this is PvP. The first tier is going to be 2 or more Vivians. I'm not going to cover all of her abilities right here. I'm going to cover it in tier 0, make it easier. But the gist of it is that in tier Vivian, when you have 2 or more Vivians on your team, the chances of you winning are extremely, extremely higher, and it's hard to lose. Even with 1, it's good, but when you have 2 or more, it's pretty much the meta. If you're not running 2 to try and compete in PvP, it's going to be very hard for you to do, essentially. Not saying that you can't do it. It's just saying that you're going to be struggling at people that are having multiple or more on one team. All right. Now we're getting to the next tier, ladies and gentlemen. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we have tier 0 as the next one we're going to cover. First off, we're going to start with Apate. Apate, she has the ability to manipulate energy in the meta, which is huge right now. That affects people so much, not being able to get Vivian actives off, or NF marks off, which can do potentially a lot of damage as well. So what happens is, when she uses her active, she has a 75% chance to put a resonant mark on a girl. The resonant mark will essentially, whenever the girl has 100%, or not 100%, but 100 energy, it will remove all that 100 energy, doing 10% of attack per 1 energy. So you can see that's a lot of damage, depending on how much, whatever her attack is. And usually what you do is you build her with just straight attack, because she's going to die and come back anyways, so it's not a problem. So it's 75% chance. Alrighty, another thing she also does is she also dodges the enemy's attacks. So it's a 40% dodge attack. Whenever she gets hit with an active or basic, she can potentially dodge the attack, which is huge because it keeps other girls from gaining energy, or what's the word? Triggering other things, let's say like Von Helsing that just came out. Right, ladies and gentlemen? She targets the girl with the highest attack. Apate dodges attacks. No, girls that rely on attacking people to gain advantages by getting hits in, she just reduces that because she's dodging. You can get her dodge up to 50% with elite skills. Just remember that. On her basic attack, she will also reduce energy. It will be removed, but it doesn't do as much damage as the resonant marks would do, if that makes sense. So the resonant marks will do a lot more damage because it's the active, and the passive will only target 1 girl, and it's only 6% of attack on that. Lastly, whenever she heals, so her Snake Volus will come out. When Volus is out, the end of round, it will deal 50% of HP loss damage against the enemy with the lowest HP. So end of round, each trigger, she would always target and hit the one with the lowest HP for damage. It's not as much damage as the resonant marks, but over time it does a lot of damage. After 4 stacks have gone by of her Voice of Siren stacks, which is her death state, when she gets all 4 of them, she will revive the next round, be full health and full energy. This either happens by 4 rounds passing by or 4 girls dying with an enemy round. So if in 1 round 4 girls die, whether it be yours or the enemies, she just comes back to life. It could be 2 rounds, 2 girls die 1 turn, the next round 2 returns, she returns the next round essentially. That makes sense. And also a little side note, just remember that the resonant marks will bypass LB5 shields, the limit break for the shields. So If a girl's low enough health, just remember it, and you hit her with a resonant mark and she has full energy, you potentially just get rid of her right then and there. Obviously, if you hit another Apate with it and it kills her, she's just going to go in her death state and then revive after 4 rounds or 4 girls die. So just remember that. It's not a full sure way of getting rid of her. Okay, next up we're going to have Nephilim. Nephilim, people were going to say that she was going to fall off. She didn't fall off. She's still great. Still same as always. Her active puts Neph marks on them. Nephilim marks, whatever one is, equilibrium marks on the girls. That it potentially is just going to, obviously, whenever they do active, it bleeds their health. That also bypasses LB5 shield, so later on in the fight, if a girl's low enough health, has an active, and she has an Nephilim mark on her, just getting rid of her. She, on her basic attack, she does a lot of HP percent damage, which is great to get her around damage reduction. She also will heal herself for damage dealt, and she also, different passive, she has the ability to do an end state trigger where it does 300% of attack damage in a round each time, which is great. She also puts debuff heal marks, and they stack. So the more debuff heal marks you have on a girl, the more chances she has of not getting heals as much. The more you have, the less heals they're getting, which is great in keeping your team up above on heals, and there's not potentially get rid of them. She also has a really high damage reduction in health, so she can be used as a tank. She can soak up lots of damage and heal herself. So her survivability rate is extremely high, with also potential of doing lots of damage as well, which is great for this meta, because it's a tanky meta. Next up, we have Vivian. Or as we stated earlier, we have Vivian tier. If you have 2 or more, she's really important, and she's the go-to girl of having multiple copies. She just overwhelms teams. Her active, what it does is potential to heal a girl for 25% of her maximum HP. It also will remove 2 debuffs per attack for 4 rounds. So, no, sorry, 2 rounds. It's 4 chances per round. So each round, if a girl gets attacked, chance of removing 70% chance of removing 2 debuffs. That can happen 4 times in 1 round. It lasts for 2 rounds, and then after 2 rounds, you have to do another active, and then that repeats itself. So if you have multiple Vivians, think of it this way. If you have 3 Vivians on a team, for instance, you have 3 actives off. That's 3 chances of 70% chance of removing multiple debuffs multiple times. So each girl has a chance of 12 times of being able to remove a debuff. That is huge. Granted, they have to get hit with an active or basic attack, but that's still really big in that aspect, because the heal debuffs won't be on there. Whatever debuffs they have on the girl just not being there, non-existent. Next up, her second passive. At the end of a round, she has a chance to remove energy and speed from girls. That is huge, because speed is king in the meta as always. Being able to reduce the speed of a girl so that you can go first the next turn before them, and reducing the energy so they don't get actives, or keeping them off of their actives, is just huge. It's great. Apate's, you could say, more effective in a sense, but at the same time, having multiple Vivians to trigger this in a round, because it targets 2 girls. So if you have 3 or 2 girls, and in a round this triggers, it triggers, that's multiple times of this happening, of chances of you targeting a girl that the hope that it removes it to, or reducing the speed. So that's just huge. And last up, the big thing from her also is her Galaxy Mark. She has a chance to whatever damage she receives, push it back to the other girl that's marked. Now, this mark cannot be baptism. It cannot be cleansed. It's there. It's a mark. It's a link between the 2 girls. It cannot be removed. The only way to remove it is if the girl dies. So, a good thing having on your team, having a Galaxy Mark on your own Apate, because she's going to come back anyways, so it's not really a big deal. So you're hoping that the Galaxy Mark kind of lands on that. A girl that can either tank a lot of damage and heal herself, or just has a chance to come back and revive, because then you're like, no big deal. This Galaxy Mark can affect a lot of girls in the meta as far as survivability-wise. Having 2 marks of a Galaxy Mark on one girl has potential to just ruin her round 1 instantaneously. There's no chance of coming back from it, depending on how much damage the enemy team deals. If they do a lot of damage right off the bat, and you have 2 Galaxy Marks on one girl, they're dead. They're not coming back, unless, of course, it's a Pate and it revives. But that's besides the point. All right, next up, we're going to move into Tier 1. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we have Tier 1 now. Alright, so we're going to cover this kind of loosely. We're not going to go in-depth detail with each girl. Sorry, I couldn't say that word. But we're just going to cover what they do, essentially. Raphael is a healer. She boosts attacks and speed. So essentially, getting her active off, you have a chance to boost your attack and speed. She also, on a basic attack, will be able to heal girls, and when she dies, she'll do lots of heals as well. So letting her die is not a bad problem. Letting her survive for a little bit, trying to get her to survive, is a good thing. She works well with Vivian's to help boost her heals because of enough debuff marks, but at the same time, giving her to stay a little bit longer before she dies to help boost your attack and speed can be a leg up on the competition, essentially. Next up, we have Kratos. Kratos, you just want to make her fast. Try to get some terrorize marks off on some girls to lock them out from doing their basic attacks, which is great. She targets the girl with the lowest HP, so she potentially can lock out any girl that's not on an active ability that's lower HP right off the bat. Over time, as she does more actives and attacks, she boosts her attack. The more damage she does, and the more lower the health is, if they're under 35%, the chance she has of removing the girls, like killing them, getting them off the field. Of course, her attack doesn't go through LB5 shield, so it takes a little bit, but the potential of getting them, finishing them off is there. She also will heal herself when they're under 35%, so she can be at death's door, have an active, hit a girl that's low, deal all that damage, get rid of them, and then heal herself back up again, and then she's just there. She has a great sustainability, a great attack, but she still has such a tanky meta, she can't finish girls off as quickly as she used to, essentially. Plus, Isanami counters her as well. Next up, we have Psychic. Psychic just won't go away. She just seems to always be here. She finds ways to just be useful. Essentially, the biggest takeaway from her is her stuns. She has the ability to weaken enemy girls, giving them more damage, giving your girl energy off of her active, being able to heal girls as well, and to just be able to stun. The stun is the biggest takeaway from her. The stuns, it's like 93% normally. You can get it to 100% with her elite skills. So that's just huge. And it targets all the girls on the enemy team. Even if they have 100 control immunity, that's okay. But at the same time, stunning girls and locking them out turn one. Let's say one of your girls has an active, right? But all of a sudden the Psychic on turn one, round one, gets under 50% and she stuns that one. That's a huge momentum shift for the team that's running the Psychic, essentially. If that makes sense. So mostly you're going to be only using her for stuns, but she has the other caveats of healing and giving energy to another girl to full energy, and then increasing damage on the enemy team as well. Next up, we have Skye. Skye's in this weird place. They did give her a buff. Her damage and health still not that great. I guess you could say if Vivian wasn't so great in the meta, her heals Skye's heals would be better, essentially. Whenever girls die, she heals, so that's a good thing. The biggest takeaway is her speed manipulation. Yes, they buff the speed manipulation. Because the debuffs get removed a lot, it's not as great. The big takeaway, though, that's really effective is giving 80 speed at the beginning of the fight to all your girls. So if the enemy team is not running a Skye and you want to abuse the fact of giving Vivian actives off or your actives off before usually there are Pate attacks, that's a huge advantage for you. I know it's going to be lacking in the department of heals and damage from her, essentially, but that's the nature of the game if you're trying to do that. If you're not worried about getting your actives off and you're just worried about playing a different kind of longer game, hoping that the Apate's marks don't go off, that's fine. You can do that as well. Next up, we have Fenrir. People just commented because Jonah just got a buff that Fenrir is useless now. No, she's not. She's still great. She's still going to be useful. All of her abilities on her third block to do damage, and she is immune from crowd control is great. Over time, every time an active goes off, she increases her damage, and it just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking. It's great as well. She also has high health, and she heals herself also on the passive blocks. So her sustainability is really high. Can also give her damage reduction on an antique. With that, Magic Hat, as you see right there. So you can get her to 100% block without echoes. And then also a pet giving her block. So essentially, you can run more damage reduction on her because you don't care if all she needs is 3 blocks. It doesn't matter how much damage she takes. It just matters if she gets 3 blocks or not. Then she does the damage and she heals herself. So making her survive as long as possible, making her a tank, is actually a good thing because she does more damage that way instead of giving her just a crap load of attack. So the more health you have, the more damage reduction you have on her, a good amount of a block above 100% is the best way to go for that, essentially. Next up, we have Yurio. Yurio, multiple copies can be good, but still, the mark of weakness will go off. The marks will stay there. When she gets triggered and the mark goes off, the chance to remove the mark, the activation is there. So the marks can be on the girls, but once it's activated, the activation can be removed, essentially. That's the way to put it. It's kind of the way how it works. She has really good survivability. People have found better builds for her from when she first came out. So she can survive really well. She can do lots of damage potentially as well. I've seen it to where she's got 30 to 40 million damage personally from testing against other people that are using her, the way they built her. She does very, very well. She's not the best, but if you have her, you can use her, essentially. Next up, we have Isanami. We had a change on Isanami on her healing curse. It cannot be removed now. Do I like it? It's up for debate for me personally. I don't know. We'll see. But for other people, they might love this. It's great. This can counter a lot of healing in the meta. So it's not bad. We can see how this works out with her. Of course, that's on her basic attack. So on her basic attack, targets 2 girls, does some damage, and then does the healing curse. On her passive, whenever a girl does an active, she will ping them 3 times, essentially. It's like 3 follow-up hits after an active. This is bad if he has a Fenrir and you hit all 3 on the Fenrir. Chances of that happening is really small, but it happens, so just be aware of that. On her active, she gives you shields, and the shields will convert whatever 100% of the active or basic attack that hits them on that shield into health. It only gets 2 layers per each active, so if you have a chance of locking the other girls down, not getting attacks off, and just accumulating shields, you have a chance of staying alive. Now remember, there is a lot of passive damage in the meta, and that doesn't... Passive damage goes by those shields and it doesn't do it. Anything that's not an active or basic won't target the shields, and they'll just take damage anyways. So she's really good against Kratos, Yurio, Fenrir's active, because they do a lot of damage. A Rogue's active, but the Rogue's active, if it crits, the other passive damage will still go through, but the other 2 won't go through. Jonah's active, the first part of the active will work like that. The follow-up attacks on Jonah don't get affected by their passive as well. So anything that's passive goes by these shields. Anything that's not goes with there. Okay, next up we're going to have tier 1.5, ladies and gentlemen. We'll cover those girls right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have tier 1.5. These girls are very strong, but they need other girls to help them to synergize with, to keep them alive, or to pair with them to utilize them fully, essentially. Now, we'll start off with Rogue. Rogue is very low in the health department, but she's very high in the damage department. So that's a double-edged sword in a sense, because we're in a very tanky meta right now. Speed is king. She's not going to go first, but the chances of getting damage just redirected and the enemy team healing up affects her so much. So you need someone like multiple Vivians and a Pate to work with her, so the Pate can hopefully strip all their energy so that they don't have ways to heal themselves, and then you can just use Rogue to pound them back. Obviously, you're going to take damage as well, and then have your other Vivians or Raphaels to boost your health back up to keep them alive. Now, Rogue's Disrespect will remove an immunity from her, control immunity, and then the Dauntless will redirect damage. So, from a basic or active attack. So, let's say you're fighting tier 0 team and you have a Rogue. A lot of that's going to be passive. Neff and Vivian's... Well, Neff's basic does a lot of damage back, but her active doesn't do that much damage as just a normal active, not her marks. Vivian's active doesn't do that much, or her basic. It doesn't really do much damage. So hitting a Rogue is not really going to hurt you. But then again, Vivian, once you do a lot of damage, she redirects all the damage, so it's double-edged sword in there. Pate's active does a little bit of damage, but then it's her resonant marks when it hits and it strips all the energy away. It's a different part of the active. So the first part of the active will trigger Rogue. So on tier 0, the only one that's really going to be affecting it is Neff's basic attack, which does a lot. But the chances of it just hitting that Rogue are really small. So her Dauntless is not going to do as much damage depending on who you fight. Now, if you're fighting someone, let's say Kratos, and Kratos hits her, yes, that's going to work out for you. or a Fenrir's attack or Uriel's attack kind of thing. You know, that's gonna do damage back more. But as far as the main, that's why Rogue is struggling in that aspect. Plus, she has low health, and everyone else has so much health, and they just be able to heal themselves. It's just hard for Rogue to survive. But if you have a way to keep her alive for a decent amount of time, she can become a problem, essentially. Another reason why that also can be bad for Rogue is usually on the field, she's the lowest HP girl. And the only thing that takes to lock her out is one Kratos. But Kratos' Terrorizer mark, she attacks the girl with the lowest HP, and it's automatic Terrorizer mark. Now, at the beginning of the round, she's not going to have a Dauntless. And Kratos is going to go first before Rogue. So if you just want to lock a Rogue down, you just take Kratos. Instantly hits the Rogue. Every time. Maybe if you have a lower LB Psychic, but that's, you know, you're just hurting your team at that point. Because Rogue's probably going to be the lowest. So that's on there. So I'm not saying Rogue's bad. Rogue's great for damage, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of ways to just lock her out, essentially, or keep her damage in check, essentially. So, that being said, Jonah's next. I know Jonah just got a buff, but I did some testing on it the other day, and it's good, but she still needs help, essentially. She dies really quickly, essentially. So if you pair her with multiple Vivians, or some way to heal herself, or to be able to have someone else try to soak up more damage, and for her to just try to survive. Now, I do know if she gets the galaxy marks on her and she gets deleted, she's done. She's done. She's not coming back from it. She's just... If she had more health, and she had the ability to, on the resident marks, get them quicker for damage reduction, then she could probably survive longer. It works out. Now, her active not being able to block the rest of the after the follow-up resonant marks is great. I saw that. I got her a couple actives off on her watching it. Just kept testing it. Yes, it does a lot more. It's a lot better. Trust me. And the problem with it still is that her follow-up attacks, like I said earlier, on Fenrir, still get blocked. So that can be still a problem on Jonah. She still gets blocked on those, and it can potentially hurt her team. But the keynote is that her active on the follow-up resident marks don't get blocked. Now, they're not always going to target a Fenrir. Unless it's Fenrir is the last girl on the field. Well, then you don't have to worry about suiciding your whole team like it used to be. But at the same time, Fenrir being the last girl, it's kind of rare at this point. Other girls can survive. They keep themselves a lot longer. Vivian and Neff's a lot better at doing that. Fenrir is still good at that. So I guess it depends on what your team targets, what their team targets, and that end suspect. But Jonah really needs some girls to keep her alive on the heels. But the potential of her dying the first 2 rounds is still really high. But if you can get her past those rounds and you keep her surviving the whole time and she doesn't die, yes, by means, oh yes, she does amazing damage. She does amazing finishing off girls with her active. So that being said, and everyone's I forgot to add the comment. Well, when a girl dies, she heals herself. Yes, but it's taking such a long time for any girl to die because they're constantly being healed and there's so much health on them and there's so much damage reduction on some of them that the chances of one dying are so small. Jonah's not getting her heals off to help herself, so she's relying heavily on other girls to heal her to keep her alive, if that makes sense. So if by chance in the meta changes in the future, and we get a girl that just does a lot of damage and it just finishes off girls even quicker with these tanky meta, and Jonah can get more heals to survive more, then yes, I can see her moving up more on the tier list. But as of right now, she just needs so much help to stay alive and supporting her. She shouldn't have to be stuck at tier 1.5. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the nature of the game, ladies and gentlemen. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Lastly, we have tier 2. I'm just gonna barely cover these girls. They are strong girls in the meta, but they need a lot of synergy for them to work, essentially. So you're only building them with this. It's all you have, essentially. Then swapping them from a different girl that's better. Case in point, like Valera, you want to swap for a Fenrir or a Vivian. Isun Jacob or Kratos or Apate, preferably Apate, or an Isanami, whichever. Gabriel, Yurio, Raph, or Neff, essentially. Vieira, Jonah, not much choice there, but it is. Or Mio, switch up from there. All right, so Isu Jacob has a chance of manipulating energy, just like Apate. She can reduce the frontline armor, and she can, if she attacks the backline, she will reduce speed on that from her active. On her death trigger, when a girl dies, she does 200% of attack damage to the girls, and then at the end of round, the mark will also, the D mark you say, will trigger again. So the more girls die, the more damage she does. But because there's so much heals and damage reduction in the meta right now, her damage isn't that high. So you're mostly using it for stripping energy and reducing armor and speed from her. Next up, we have Mio. Mio was really great for a really long time, but because her damage isn't that great and we have such a high damage reduction in health and tanking meta right now, her damage is really lacking. Yes, she has lots of health and she can tank a lot, not taking that away from her, but she's lacking in the damage department, so that's what's holding her back. And at this point in time, we need girls that do lots of damage, so she's just not performing in that aspect. That's why she's down that low. Next up, we have Viera. Viera, her Diminish and Lullabies got fixed. They can't be cleansed anymore, so they're there. So Diminish was always, it'll last for 2 rounds no matter what, which is great, which will reduce the damage by 30%, and I think she takes an extra 50%. Yeah, so she reduces the damage that the girl that's diminished, reduces by 30%, and she takes 50% damage. So that's great in that sense. But her active on the Lullabies, they don't do as much to help out. Yes, when you use her, you can see that she doesn't do as much damage because it's calculated into the girls that the Lullaby shields are on. So it doesn't look like she's performing, but she is doing some stuff. But her heals and redirecting of attack is not as good as, say, Isanami's. Isanami's heals are a lot better. Redirecting attack, Vivian's is obviously better on that aspect, doing damage back. So essentially, it's kind of like if you don't have a support girl and you really need a support girl, but you have Viera copies, kind of build her. It's kind of one of those things, you know? Next up, we have Valera. Valera's good with crowd control. You can't really build her with damage because she just doesn't survive that long. You got to build her with some HP and just speed to just try and get her to do some crowd control. So if you're lacking in that department, you need a little bit of help, but you don't have other girls to help you with, go ahead. Remember, if you build her, you're going to want to switch her to a Fenrir or a Vivian in the future, essentially, to help out with that. Lastly, we have Gabriel. Gabriel is kind of iffy. She's just kind of on the tier 2 aspect. She's kind of the lower one on this list. If you have a bunch of her, you can build her up and then switch her for a Raphael and Neff in the future, or Yurio, whichever one you have and you would prefer to do so. She has the ability to survive while getting hit, damage reduction. She also puts crit marks on other girls, and then when she crits, she converts those crit marks into damage, which multiple of those, it can get rid of LB5 shield essentially because she just has so many crit marks on the girls. Her damage is a little lacklustering in the aspect and the fact that, yes, she can survive, but there's so much health on girls and damage reduction and healing potential right now of healing girls. She's just not as effective, essentially, if that makes sense. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we got for the list today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of the video. Thank you all for watching this video. And if you like this video, please smash the subscribe button. I really appreciate your support. Best thing I could say here, ladies and gentlemen, if you watch the whole video and you still have questions, either join my Discord, a link will be down below in the description, or you can join the official Discord. In my channel, there's also a section which has the link to the official Discord as well. There's lots of people that help in there. As we're ending this video, I would like to say thank you to all the people that helped make this tier list, whether it be from the official Discord or from my Discord. All of your input, I want to say thank you for all your help in doing this, and look forward to working with you in the next one as well. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it is a crazy world out there. Stay safe, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace out, ladies and gentlemen.